What's up, guys? It's Toad. Sorry for the lateness here. I was just at Steel Panther, baby. I got home not too long ago, but I had to get some stuff done at home, too. Steel Panther, check them out if you don't know them. I mean, they're a satirical, over-the-top, like 80s hair metal, glam rock band, basically, and they just over-sexualize everything. They got chicks whipping their titties out on stage and then play a very sexually charged music, and it is hilarious, but they're also actually super talented as well. Fun time tonight. And I wasn't paying total attention to what my bets were doing. 7-3 day today, so I'll take that. I mean, I had bets all throughout the day. Not a bad day for me. College football was 2-1. Of course, the loss was, I had a couple of real ugly looking losses. I mean, Northwestern, what can you do, man? I thought it was the right side, the right play there. A loss is a loss, as ugly as it is. Yeah, I mean, whatever. You handicapped some games wrong. The other two got there. UConn covered, although they didn't win outright, unfortunately. And then the other one, what was the other play I had? Louisville. I think they won easy in a total blowout. This Pitt team, it was against Pitt, right? Pitt is completely dead. Hockey, I just continue to absolutely annihilate hockey. 3-0 in hockey today. I think I've won like 5 straight hockey bets again after I had a couple wrong. I think I'd have to go check, but this hockey season has been insane for me. I think I'm probably like somewhere in the vicinity of like 20-7 in hockey, but I have to go check that. That might be wrong, but I'm murdering hockey. So it is fun times for me with hockey, man. Philadelphia Flyers won, I think, in overtime. That over hit in regulation, because I had over 5.5 in whatever game that was. I don't remember what game it was. It went into a shootout, though, I think. So it did go into overtime, but didn't even matter. The over hit anyway in regulation. And then I had the Colorado Avalanche. That was all good. College basketball, 2-1, I think. And the only loss in college basketball was a close one. The St. Mary's, I think, missed the cover by, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 scores, if I remember correctly. I think they won by like 16, and I needed them to win by 20, something, whatever it was, something like that. It was not too far off. They had a good first half, it looks like, and then they just kind of packed it in a little bit, which I was worried about that a little bit. Just they play slow pace, but I won on Kent State and Furman. I think both pretty easy wins on those. So college basketball, after a really bad stretch, is starting to turn it around. I think I'm actually moving closer to 500 in college basketball again. Hopefully. It's going to take a little while more, but not bad. And then basketball, NBA, I mean, the Lakers, what can you even say about that? I think the Lakers are winning that game by 6 or 8 in the third quarter, and then they got completely annihilated from then on. It was the worst, like, third quarter and fourth quarter combined that I've seen in a long time, man. They wound up losing by 20-something points after they were up 8. I think, up 8 in the third quarter, whatever it was. That just didn't work out for me. What's up, Nate? 4-3. Yeah, I didn't love it. 11 green weeks, that's solid, man. Yeah, they did. Steel Panther always plays Death to All But Metal, pretty much. That's their, like, closing song. And then they come out for the encore, and they do Glory Hole. That's pretty much what they always do. The both times that I've seen them play, that's what they did. And they played Community Property tonight. I think maybe they play that most nights. I think they played it the other time I saw them too. I like that song quite a bit too. But it was a wild night, man. They played Asian Hooker, and they had an Asian woman come up on stage who was kind of older and wasn't even particularly good looking. They're just, you get up here, you're Asian. It was kind of hilarious, man. She seemed to be getting into it a little bit too. And yeah, I mean, it's a fun time, whatever. And then they do Girl from Oklahoma and 17 girls in a row or whatever. And they got chicks taking their titties out on stage. That's also fun. All right, let's get to this NFL card here, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about NFL here. I'm 1-0 so far. I had Cleveland on Thursday night. I really liked the spot for Cleveland. That was my favorite play of the week, so it's all downhill from here, man. I do have 2 more plays, and I'm going to talk about some of my leans here. This is a week where we have a lot of teams off. 6 teams are on bye. Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, New Orleans, Jets, and Jacksonville are all on bye. Teams coming off bye are Tampa and the Giants, and they're playing each other. Is Carolina coming out of a bye? I believe they are. And then Arizona. I think those are the 4 teams that were on bye last week. Yeah, man, crab legs. That was I was 5-1 on Thursday, and probably should have been 6-0 really. And North Carolina State should have money line cashed on that too. My only loss was that Utah Jazz play on Thursday. Kind of angers me, but I'm on a 15-6 run in bets. I think after going 7-3 tonight, and looking at the Lakers score, I was like, oh, I might go 8-2 today. But 7-3, I mean, still 7-3 is a big winning day, man. So I'm on a nice stretch here. Let's get some wins in NFL. How about that? All right, let's talk about some of these games. I'm not going to talk about every single game, but I usually hit many of them, most of them probably. I will talk about Vikings, Chicago. The games that I don't talk about are usually ones that I have like the least of a read on for the most part. Minnesota, I mean, this is a hard one to read for me too, man, because I could see arguments for both teams here. What happened? USC, UCLA, I didn't see it at all. UCLA kicked off after halftime at their own 5. What? Oh, they had 3 unsportsmanlike conducts at the end of the. So they must have lost the game then. You get 3 unsportsmanlike conducts. That probably means you're not doing well there. So going into the half, they had that, and they had to kick off from the 5-yard line. That's ridiculous. No, I did not see that. Minnesota Vikings, I could see arguments for both sides in this game, so I'm not playing it. Oh, it's still going on? I have the Air Force Nevada game on here right now, which I should have played this game, man. Air Force is going to win this game. Man, and there's nobody left in the stadium here either. I think Nevada just got a touchdown, but it's too late for them. Crap. Because this was one of my leans that I gave out on the show. I talked about a lot of college football games, man. And this was, if you remember, I said Air Force was the first game I left off my card, and they're going to cover and win out right here. Bad spot for Nevada, but what can you do? Charles, what's up, my man? It's on Peacock. I think I do have that. Wait, what game we're talking? Oh, UCLA. UCLA football. I'm just going to voice command it. I got it's on NBC, it looks like. It's not just on Peacock. It just put me on NBC, but I do have Peacock as well. USC's only up 3 with 2 minutes left. Looks interesting, but I don't want to focus on this, man. I want to focus on these games here. Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears, man. I can see arguments for both sides in this game. Minnesota, I mean, they're playing a 3rd straight road game, man. So that's not exactly the easiest spot to be in, but maybe it's mitigated somewhat by the fact that the other 2 games were against bad opponents, Jacksonville and Tennessee, and they really did not play well in either of these games. I mean, Jacksonville hung around in that game. Both teams had 3 turnovers, though Minnesota did actually completely dominate Jacksonville statistically in that game. But 3 turnovers, that's a mess. And then they played the Tennessee last week, and this game was kind of ugly as well. Will Levis actually had a good game in this game for once. He still threw an interception, though. I mean, when does he not? I mean, he was decent in this game, though. And Sam Darnold also kind of picked it up again in that game. But I don't think there's much to really talk about with Minnesota as far as coming off that game. I think the main reason why this would be a bad spot for Minnesota is that they're playing a 3rd straight road game. And you could argue that Chicago's offense is maybe turning it around with this new offensive coordinator. He runs the ball a lot more. So they had a much more balanced offense last week against Green Bay. So taking the load off Caleb Williams a bit, who isn't very good, and trying to balance that offense a bit. But I think Chicago's kind of in a bad spot here, man. So I might actually lean to laying the points with Minnesota in this game. This is a really hard read, because everything I just said is really the biggest negative on Minnesota is that it's a 3rd straight road game. So it's like, is that really that bad a schedule? And who do they play next? I don't even remember. I don't think it's anybody big. It is, it's Arizona. I mean, they're leading the division, I think, in the West right now, but probably not really cause for a look ahead. I mean, this is a divisional game, but look at how difficult the spot is for Chicago, dude. Chicago, they're coming off that loss to Green Bay. That was a brutal loss for Chicago, man. I mean, I had Chicago in the game last week, if you remember. That was one of my wins. They covered, didn't win the game outright, and they were winning the game outright. I mean, you can see the graph here on ESPN. They were a very high percentage to win the game late in the game, and they lost right near the end on a Green Bay touchdown, Jordan Love rush, right at the end after Chicago was up. Well, that was with a couple minutes left. Chicago was up 6 before that. multiple times. Then after Green Bay scored the touchdown, we remember the Bears got into range for a long field goal. I said it was makeable, which it was. I thought it was shorter than it actually was. It was a long field goal, but it could have potentially won the game. I mean, Chicago has Cairo Santos. I think still he's a pretty good kicker, a pretty capable kicker there. And it was blocked, and Chicago lost. And I know I said this about that Atlanta Falcons, Denver Broncos play, I think last week, right? Where I said Denver was coming off a spot like this where they lost to the Chiefs on a blocked field goal that could have won the game. Yeah, but I still stand by how I handicap at least that aspect of the situation. That puts a team in a bad spot, man. You're going to be in a hangover spot if you step up and play a divisional rival who's better than you like this and you lose that way right at the end after you're leading the game. You lose at the end and you have a potential game-winning field goal blocked. That, like, rips your heart out, man. And yes, I know the Bears, it's not like they're going to overlook Minnesota, though, because Minnesota's ahead of them in the division, obviously. It's still a big game for the Bears. But look who they have next, man. They have to go to Detroit and play on Thanksgiving. That's a big game. Like, however you look at it, man. Like, if anything is bigger than a Minnesota game or than a Green Bay game, it's those two games. I mean, bigger than a Minnesota game, I mean, it's these two games. Like, I know Minnesota's a big game, but I think Green Bay and Detroit on Thanksgiving are both actually bigger games than playing Minnesota is. So I actually slightly lean to Minnesota here, as wild as that sounds. And that would be going against the market read on that one for sure. So I'm not going to play it. But this week, man, week 12, I think it's usually week 12, but whatever the week, it is week 12 this week at least. Whatever the week is before Thanksgiving, you get some potential look-ahead spots, man. You got to look at teams that are about to play on Thanksgiving, and that's going to be Detroit against Chicago. It's going to be Dallas against the New York Giants, I think. Thanks to the schedule makers for that. We get a game on Thanksgiving. Detroit and Dallas always host Thanksgiving, but Dallas versus the Giants is the Thanksgiving game. I mean, really? Come on. And then the night game is actually an interesting one. It's a weird one. I believe it's Miami Green Bay is the Thanksgiving night game. So take a look. All of those teams could be in look-ahead spots because of that, because they're all playing on Thanksgiving. So Chicago maybe as well, even though maybe they should still be focused on this Minnesota game, but still, like I said, if anything is going to cause them not to be focused on a game like this, it's going to be what this game is surrounded with. It's a pretty unique sandwich spot there. The Vikings are down from 5 to 3.5, though, with 59% of the tickets on them and 50% of cash evenly split, so on the Bears. So the market read here says to take the Bears, but I would very much hesitate to do that. So I'm not going to play the game, but I have to pick this game in pools, and I got to decide what to do. I slightly lean towards the Minnesota side in that one, as crazy as that sounds. Miami, New England, I lean to New England in this one, taking the points. I mean, Miami, yeah, I know they have Tua back, but here's the thing, man. This is an in-season road revenge spot, divisional road revenge spot for New England, because Miami went into New England and beat New England, and that was a game with no Tua and no Drake May. This game was Tyler Huntley against Jacoby Brissett. I don't know if we remember this game, but I talked about, oh man, this game's going to be real ugly. And the Patriots, if you remember how the Patriots lost that game, the Patriots had what looked like a winning touchdown in the end zone there, and it was that weird rule that was applied where you have to get both feet down in the end zone like fully if you're moving backwards or something. I forget who the receiver was who caught it, but that rule made it not a touchdown for New England. So I think that's going to be some extra motivation for New England here in this one, man. This is going to be a completely different game, of course, with both quarterbacks being different here. But we remember, yeah, Miami went into New England and beat them still. And the way that New England lost that game, I think New England might be a little bit angry about that. And as far as Miami is concerned, yeah, I mean, they're coming off a game that doesn't really mean anything. They beat the Raiders. Who cares? But look what they have up next, man. As I just mentioned, Miami is playing the Thursday night game on Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving night game against the Green Bay Packers. That's a big game. So Miami could look right past New England here, man, even though I know New England is right behind them in the standings. And Miami, really, they can't afford to lose any game now. So that's kind of the issue I have. If you wanted to take New England, I do lean that way. But the issue that I have with that is that Miami does still need to win basically they need to win a bunch of games here because they're still live to make the playoffs, especially with Tua back. So that might be the one thing that's causing Miami to not lose focus here. But it does look like one of those road reversal revenge spots for New England, and it's a look ahead for Miami. So that is how I look at that game. So I would look to take the points with the Patriots there, but I'm not going to do it. Miami's up from 7-7 with juice. So it looks like you might be able to get 7.5 on New England. 87% of tickets on Miami. I mean, Miami's going to bring the public action. As soon as Tua is back and Miami starts playing better offensively, the public is right back on the Miami train, man. They want that offense. But 92% of the cash also on Miami. But still, Miami's definitely public there and probably being a little bit overvalued there. I think Drake May is actually being a little bit overlooked. That Patriot offense is definitely better with Drake May there. Yeah, Tommy Cutlets against Red Rocket 2.0. Yeah, that's going to be a great Thanksgiving game, man. I will mention Tommy Cutlets in a minute just because I'm going to mention the games where some weird quarterback situations are going on here. So I'll mention that now, actually. Tampa and the Giants. Both of these teams are coming out of bye, and both of these teams, yeah, man, Toad with the juice. Both of these teams are coming out of byes, and both teams went into a bye on a long loss streak, man. So I think the bye came in a good spot for both of these teams. So Steel Panther, what they called Eminem and Jazz gay. Jazz, like you mean the genre? I like jazz, but calling Eminem gay is hilarious. Steel Panther, they caused a lot of controversy, man, but they seem like they're pretty based, actually, like politically, I think, from what I can tell. Steel Panther, they seem pretty cool. But Tampa and the Giants both went into this bye on a bad loss streak. You know, I always say when you're on a loss streak and you go into a bye, the bye tends to help you, like, fix things and refocus, but I think the bye is a little bit less helpful for Tampa Bay here because were they really playing that badly down the stretch here? They lost to Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City in overtime, and San Francisco. Baltimore by 10, Atlanta by 5, Kansas City in overtime by 6, and San Francisco by 3. So they didn't exactly play badly in any of those games, man, even though they lost all 4 of them. That was a gauntlet of a schedule for Tampa. So I actually think this bye might not help them as much, but my issue is they don't have anything coming up next, really. They're not really going to look ahead to the Carolina Panthers. So I don't think it's really that bad a spot for Tampa Bay there. But the Giants also went into the bye. They went into the bye on an even worse note. They had lost 5 games in a row, and they lost to Carolina in London. Or no, was it in London or in Germany? I forget. I think this one was in Germany, I guess. They lost in Germany going into the bye. This was in Munich. And the Giants did outplay Carolina in that game, and they had 3 turnovers in that game. So I think that also kind of indicates that the Giants are going to be in a better spot to use this bye to try to fix some things. Because when you lost and you probably should have won that game, you turned the ball over a bunch, and it was against a bad team, kind of in a weird environment. I think the bye is going to help you a little bit more. So I think the bye will help the Giants a little bit more. So I do lean to the Giants in this one, but it is not strong. Buccaneers up from 3-6. But I think the 3 might have been a look ahead. Or no, this, obviously, because I just said I was going to talk about it. Yeah, the Jigga Man Pimp. I don't know. The Buccaneers, this line is moved from 3-6 because of the Giants quarterback situation. The Giants are either benching Daniel Jones or he's hurt. I don't know which, but the odds makers have no faith in Tommy DeVito, man. Tommy Cutlets is going to be starting for the Giants, and he has started multiple games for the Giants, so he at least has a little bit of experience under his belt, so he's not coming in to this game cold, really, because he does know the system. He's been there for a while. He's started games before for the Giants, but he hasn't been very effective in those games, so that's the issue there. He's not a very good quarterback, really, it looks like to me, so if the Giants are intentionally switching from Daniel Jones to Tommy DeVito, I don't really understand why they're doing that. Tommy DeVito, by the way, that is the name of Joe Pesci's character in Goodfellas as well, so I don't know. Daniel Jones got released? That's not true, is it? I don't think so. Is that really actually true? They were paying him like 20-something million or something. They were paying him so much money. This Giants organization, man, they're just so horribly run right now with Shane there at GM. He's got to get fired. Shane is awful, dude. All right, I will look it up. Shane, I think, is the GM's name there. Mr. Uncrustables. He likes the Uncrustables. He makes himself PB&J sandwiches as well, by the way. If you watched Hard Knocks off season, which is probably the worst idea for a show I've ever heard of. Like, Hard Knocks is good because you get to see all the preseason stuff and you get to see some games happen. Hard Knocks in season is cool too because they're playing games, obviously, and the drama's there. Hard Knocks off season. I mean, come on, man. Where it's just the GM making moves. Like, the whole thing is like, what are we going to do with Saquon Barkley's contract? Yeah, that's riveting TV right there. But this Giants team is just bad, man. But in this spot, I don't want to lay the points with the Buccaneers. Let's just put it that way. They're teetering on 6.5 here. 85% of tickets, 91% of the cash. So they are public, even though it looks like they have more of the cash than the tickets right now. But Giants, I mean, there's got to be a reason why they're making these quarterback changes. So maybe that's a little bit of a catalyst for them. The Giants are running the ball, I think, a little bit better now as well. So at least there's that. They kind of found some running game without Saquon Barkley there anymore. They've finally kind of come into that. So, and this is a low total too, from 43.5 down to 40.5, which is also because of the quarterback situation there. The total also dropped because of Joe Pesci, Tommy DeVito there. So possibly an overreaction, especially on the line, though, moving up 3 points. And the total being so low, it kind of makes sense that you would kind of look towards the underdog there. And the Giants do actually have the better defense, I would say, out of these two teams as well. So you'd be getting points in a low-scoring game, potentially a low-scoring game at home with the better defense if you do want to take the Giants there. So that's what I'll say about that game. That's just a weird situation, man. Weird game. I don't even know if I want to talk about Dallas, Washington. I mean, this game is just bizarre. Dallas, of course, like I said, they do have kind of a look ahead to the Giants because they're hosting them on Thanksgiving. But if you're Dallas, are you going to overlook Washington, who's been a pretty good team this year, and they're one of the better teams in your division? I don't think you will. Like, this Dallas team, man, they're a dead team at this point. But with Cooper Rush there, Dak Prescott out for the season, the Red Rocket 2.0, he has not been doing well, man. And they're on a short week coming off Monday night, but they did not play well on Monday night, losing 34-10 to Houston. So for Dallas here, I think because they got embarrassed on a primetime stage like that on Monday, and this is a divisional matchup, I think Dallas, they do have reasons to show up for this game here. So I don't think that they're going to completely pack it in this specific game. I don't think the look ahead is going to matter that much in this case. Looking ahead to playing Tommy Cutlets on Thanksgiving, I don't think so. Everybody should eat some cutlets now on Thanksgiving for Tommy Cutlets, man. Have an Italian Thanksgiving. But no, I actually like standard classic Thanksgiving food, man. We do it right up in New England. It's good stuff. Dan Quinn, revenge angle. Where's Quinn at now? I don't even know where he is at now. He's he's with Washington now? So this is, I guess, revenge for him. I don't know. Cooper Rush, first-rated QB when it comes to tight window passes. Yeah, he's definitely doing something tight there. So Cooper Rush, I guess he should play more. Oh yeah, he's the head coach in Washington. That's right. I guess Cooper Rush, he should throw more tight window passes then, is what you're saying. He should throw passes that are as dangerous as possible. That's what he should do. This game, I don't know what to think about this game, and it's just weird. And Washington is coming off a big game, though, where they lost to Philadelphia, and they've had extra time off to think about it because that was a Thursday night game, which I called that game correctly. I said Philly should cover that game, and they did. But I think when you lose that game and you have extra time off, I think that extra time off may help you a little bit, kind of get over that loss. That was still a big loss for Washington, but still, this is a divisional game, so I don't really expect Washington to really overlook Dallas necessarily. And having that extra time off might help them get over that get over that tough loss, I should say. Because if they were turning around and playing again right away without extra time off, I might say, yeah, it's probably a bad spot for Washington. And this one maybe a little bit less so, but they're up from 10 to 10.5, and the public is laying the points. 90% of the tickets and 94% of the cash on Washington. Public all over Washington here. They don't even care that the line is huge here. They're only going to lay the points with Washington because their offense has been really good, and the Cowboys without Dak have looked absolutely terrible and have looked completely dead. So I don't want to join the public in this one and lay double digits. That's for sure. I don't even know if I necessarily lean that way. Kansas City, Carolina. This game is interesting. Kansas City, I would play against Kansas City in this one, man. I think they're in a bad spot. They lost their first game of the year, and that was a big game against Buffalo. So when you have a game like that, man, and you turn around, you play again right away, like, you know what I tend to say, that that first loss, you tend to lose that game twice is what I mean to say. So when you're rolling along, you're undefeated, and you basically haven't faced any adversity yet, and you're not used to losing, that first game that you lose, that can hang you over into that next game, man. And it's a second straight road game. So I think Kansas City might actually be hung over, and this is arguably actually kind of a sandwich spot. I'm not playing this. I'm not going to take the points with Carolina here, but I think there are more reasons to take the points with Carolina here than to try to play Kansas City. I mean, that's a big game they're coming off of against Buffalo. Like I said, first loss, which is that's like a momentum crusher when that happens, and you tend to be hung over a little bit into the next game. And as I was saying, with this being a sandwich spot, you might be thinking I'm crazy because their opponent up next is the Raiders. Yeah, but the Raiders are a divisional opponent. The Raiders played them to within 7 points last time I played them. And look what that game is, man. That game is that weird Black Friday afternoon game. If you remember, this is a new thing. Amazon Prime, Black Friday football. Now, I think it started last year with Miami and the Jets. And that was the game where I tried to take a shot with the Jets. It seemed like it was a bad spot for Miami. I think I had the Jets in that one. And the Jets were looking pretty good in that game. And they turned it over an unbelievable amount of times and wound up losing that game in a blowout where I think there was like a 100-yard pick six going into halftime in that game or something that completely ended my bet. Something like that. Like, I think Tua had just thrown another interception. Looked like the Jets were about to score to get right back in the game. And they throw a pick six basically from the goal line going all the way in the other direction. And that completely ended the game. Totally ridiculous. What do you mean leave them alone? Like, I'm not gonna leave them alone as far as betting. I will bet some of the college football rivalry games. There are usually some pretty decent angles to play in those games, so I'm not gonna leave them alone betting wise. But if you mean like don't change them in any way, like I don't know if the NCAA is planning on changing them. Yeah, I would say don't change them, because I like those rivalries. Yeah, Black Friday, the NFL Black Friday. I mean, that game, Miami Jets, that was a mess. There were so many turnovers in that game, and I don't know if this is going to be the same. Yeah, don't skip it. But yeah, it might be the same. I mean, we remember Kansas City, they had one of their worst turnover-ridden games last year, and I think that might have been one of the games on Christmas or something like that against the Raiders, if you remember that. That was a game where the Chiefs totally dominated the Raiders yardage-wise. They turned it over so much that the Chiefs didn't even score, and the Raiders won that game. So Kansas City might still actually have focus on a game against the Raiders just because those last couple of games, one was a loss and the other game was close. So I don't know, but they're not going to be focused on Carolina, right? I mean, I don't think they're going to bounce back really off of a Buffalo loss like this. I mean, it's a tough loss to take. I just don't think they're going to come into this game and like really be focused on Carolina. Like I said, a second straight road game as well. And Kansas City, do you really want to lay 11 points with Kansas City? This is a team that even though they won every game, how many games did they win by margin? I think they won 2 games by a touchdown or more, which was New Orleans. They won by 13. That was the one that they won by the most. And then they won by 10 against San Francisco. Yeah, and then exactly a touchdown against Baltimore and the Chargers. So they only won 2 games by more than a touchdown, and they only have won 1 game this season by double digit, or by more than 10 points, I should say, by this spread here, 11 or more against New Orleans. And that was a New Orleans team with a lot of injuries in that game too, I'm pretty sure. So Kansas City, they do not do well covering large spreads like this. So I am not, there's no way that I'm going to play Kansas City in this game, man. Absolutely no way. Black Friday's the beginning of college football rivalry. Yeah, I mean, that's true. But Thanksgiving, there's usually a game on Thanksgiving. I think it's always the Egg Bowl. We don't eat eggs on Thanksgiving, though, either. But I think it's Ole Miss and Mississippi State always play on Thanksgiving. That's a real great game. This this season, man, with that Ole Miss, I think, lost to Florida today, so they're basically out of the playoff running, and they're going to be up against an awful Mississippi State team. But that actually might be a dream crusher then for Ole Miss. I'll have to look into it and talk about it on Thanksgiving, but maybe it's actually a spot to take Mississippi State in that game. Excuse me, as ridiculous as that sounds. Carolina in this game, they're coming out of a bye, and I don't know, like, will that bye halt their momentum? Because they won 2 games in a row going into that bye, so you really don't want to have a bye when you've won 2 games in a row like that. But they were coming back from Munich, which they won that game. They probably shouldn't have won the game, which maybe they probably know. But you're talking about, you're facing the returning champs, man, the Kansas City Chiefs in your own house, and the team that has the best record in football this year too. So it's like, is Carolina really not going to be focused on Kansas City? No, they're going to be focused on Kansas City. So it's just a matter of, does Kansas City actually have the motivation and capability to actually even win by this margin? And I'm going to say that they do not. Sitting at an 11-point favorite here. It looks like it's gone down a little bit to reduce juice. 89% of tickets, 91% of the cash on the Chiefs. So the Chiefs are very public too. So I think it's a spot where I would look to only take the Panthers here. And the total's pretty low, even though it's up from 41 to 43. That's still a low total. So that's the way I would lean in that one, would be to taking the points with the Panthers. And with a low total, taking a huge point spread like that at home also is a little bit more valuable as well. And Bryce Young has actually started playing less horribly, at least, let's say. He's had a couple of decent games in a row now at the very least, so he's maybe not totally a laughingstock. Who knows? So that's the way that I do lean in that one. The nobody cares about the gay ball. I'll care about it if it's a good betting spot, man. That's the only reason for me to care about it. The finest women went to Ole Miss. He might be true. There are a lot of hot Southern women, man. So some of those Southern teams there, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, those teams, they tend to have really hot cheerleaders there. And some of the California teams do as well, just because they like the weather there, and Florida as well. So the Florida teams, Florida State, Florida, hot cheerleaders at those places, man. And then like UCLA, USC, those teams, a lot of hot cheerleaders there. Yeah, the Butt Plug Bowl. They need a brand of butt plug though to sponsor the bowl there. Yeah, Dan Patrick, right? Yeah, he says the finest women go to Ole Miss. May or may not be true. Houston, Tennessee. I know there are some professional bettors who like Tennessee in this one, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. Oh yeah, babes galore. I still got NBC on over here, ESPN. I'm just gonna switch over to ESPN and have Sports Center as background visuals here instead of whatever the heck was just on NBC there. But I didn't see how that game ended, UCLA or whatever. But Houston, Tennessee, like I said, there are some professionals who actually like Tennessee in this one, and I can kind of see the reasoning behind it. I mean, Houston's coming off 3 straight primetime games where they lost on Thursday night at the Jets. Then they played a Sunday night game against Detroit at home, and they blew the game. They had Detroit on the ropes, completely blew it. And then I said that might put them in a bad spot coming into this game at Dallas on Monday night. And I know Dallas is without Dak now. They're way down now without Dak. They're having a terrible season, but still, Houston annihilated them on a primetime stage in Dallas. That's still a big win for Houston, man. So after that run of games like that, yeah, I can kind of see where the professionals are coming from. And on a short week now, after blowing out Dallas in primetime and everybody saw it, yeah, Houston's going to be public here. So I do agree with that as a lean. I'm not going to play Tennessee, but Houston only has a game against Jacksonville up next, so it's not a sandwich. It's not a look ahead. Tennessee, I mean, they're going to show up for a game against Houston. I mean, it's a divisional game against one of the better teams in the division, so Tennessee should just continue to show up in games. And this game looked worse than it actually was for Tennessee. I mean, there was that one awful call against Tennessee where they called, what did they call? I forget what they called. There was some penalty on Tennessee where they said the guy launched himself into the Minnesota player, but the Tennessee player didn't even leave his feet. And that really changed the momentum of that game, and that one bad play call in this Minnesota game completely changed the momentum. So Tennessee, they really didn't play too badly in this game, other than the fact that they got way out first down, but they could have been in this game, man. So Tennessee, I mean, you could argue, well, that means they took a tough loss. Yeah, but Tennessee, they're still going to be focused when they're going on the road to Houston. And Houston, kind of has reason to maybe not be as focused in this game, let's say. So if you're taking this, you're taking 9 or 8.5 with Tennessee. Looks like it's gone down from 9 to 9 with reduced juice. Basically, that's 8.5. It's 9 plus money. So basically, 8.5s are probably out there. Not really much of a difference there. 85% of tickets, 95% of the cash on Tennessee, or excuse me, on Houston, obviously. Houston is public, but, yeah, I mean, they do have more of the cash, it looks like, than the tickets right now. I don't even know if I necessarily think that that's true or agree with that. So I do agree with the professionals that I've listened to, and I would say that I would lean to the Tennessee side there. That's hilarious if the TV only puts hot cheerleaders on and they don't put the fatties on. I don't think that's true, though, because I've seen some real fat, like, basketball cheerleaders on TV at the very least. Daniel Jones, I don't know if he's walking into Nashville. Titans had one huge play, 98-yard mega play. I don't know, man. Will Levis, he's been more capable in the last, like, game or two that he's played or whatever. I think it's not a great spot for Houston. And Houston, before that blowout against Dallas, I mean, Houston was not winning games by margin, man. How many games have they won by margin? Dallas, and we know Dallas is just awful, so what can you even do about that? And then New England, which was, I think, Drake May's first game, so there were some growing pains there. New England didn't really play that bad. There was a lot of turnovers in that game. So Houston, they're more of a defensive team right now, man. I think their offense is overrated. I think their offense is taking a step back from that offense that they had last year where just the teams weren't ready. They didn't know how to deal with what Houston was doing with C.J. Stroud and whatever. Now that they have an entire season worth of game footage on that now. I think Houston, I mean, their offense is certainly declining from what they did last year at the very least, regressing a little bit. So they aren't really a team that's that well equipped to cover large numbers like this. And the Titans can also play defense all right. Yeah, I'm a softie for Mayo, man. I really want Will Levis's mayonnaise. I'm gay for him. That's what I want. I love interceptions, too. So that would be my lean in that one. Oh, man. San Francisco Green Bay is one of the biggest games on the slate, so I got to talk about this. And hopefully I can get to my plays quickly, too. But this game, we got a wrench being thrown into this game now, man. Originally, I was going to say I like Green Bay in this game because this is playoff revenge for Green Bay. If you remember, the 49ers were the team that eliminated Green Bay from the playoffs last year. And you always remember who eliminated you from the playoffs last year. Green Bay played a good game in that game. They were coming off blowing out Dallas on the road in the playoffs, and then a fully functional Dallas team as well. Although Dallas is always a little bit dysfunctional, but it was still Dak there. Then Green Bay played well again against the 49ers. In the next game, they could have won that game too. So Green Bay is going to remember the 49ers are the team that knocked them out of the playoffs, man. So Green Bay, they'd flipped from a 1-point dog to a 2.5-point favorite initially, and that's what the line was going to be with Brock Purdy playing. That's where it was at 2.5. And I was looking into maybe playing Green Bay because of the revenge angle, and it seemed to kind of make sense there. And I'll talk about some other angles here too. But now the problem is Brock Purdy is not playing in this game. So that's true. I never simp anybody, especially not women on Twitter. So the 49ers, Brock Purdy is out in this game, and they're going to be rolling with Brandon Allen. Is that his name? Yeah, Brandon Allen. Yeah, I think that's his name. Brandon Allen is their quarterback this week. He's played some games in the NFL, but you got to go back a couple years ago. I think he hasn't started a game since 2022. He's played in one game for the 49ers, but I don't even think he threw a pass, which might have been last week. If Brock Purdy got hurt at the end of the game, he might have just come in and like finished the game or something without throwing a pass. I don't know. So I don't know how well he knows this 49er this 49er offense yet. So it is going to be a downgrade for the 49ers. And because of that, the Packers are up now to 5.5, teetering on 6 from 2.5. So yeah, Jawan Jennings, he might still get involved. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much of a downgrade you're going to see him have unless he's hurt too. I don't know. I mean, this 49ers team has been dealing with a lot of injuries this year. I mean, it's the Super Bowl loser curse. The Super Bowl loser a lot of times doesn't even make the playoffs the next year. And the 49ers, they're really up against it right now, man. And with all these injuries, I mean, we might see them miss the playoffs here. They lose this game and they fall to below 500. That's going to be rough. Packers, 51% of the tickets on them, but 55% of the cash. Now on the 49ers side, so it looks like the cash percentage is coming in and playing the injured player theory angle, because of course that means it is an injured player theory angle now with Brock Purdy out, and you know that a lot of times when that quarterback goes down, the team will step it up the first game without him, and maybe they will do that, and they're getting a bunch of points here, so that is one angle that is in favor of the 49ers. They're taking those extra points. 49ers are off a pretty big game, but it was a loss to the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks got revenge at San Francisco, and they do have Buffalo up next, but are they really going to overlook a game at Lambeau against Jordan Love and Green Bay? Now with their quarterback hurt as well, I don't think they're going to overlook Green Bay in this game, man. So I don't think that coming off an ugly loss to Seattle, if anything, that might help them bounce back a little bit more, maybe, even though that is a big game, a big divisional rivalry as well. So some angles there for the 49ers, and for Green Bay, some angles point towards Green Bay as well. I mean, they're coming off a bad performance against Chicago where, as I already mentioned, they know they got away with that game. Chicago had them pretty much on the ropes, and they won with a late touchdown and then a Chicago blocked field goal. Green Bay blocked a Chicago field goal at the end. So Green Bay might be thinking, we escaped. And that was part of my handicap, is they had just lost a really tough game to Detroit, and they were coming out of a bye off of that, and they had this big revenge game up next in San Francisco. So I think there are more reasons for Green Bay to be focused in this one. So my initial situational lean was to lay the 2.5 with the Packers, but now that it's up to 5.5, like I said, there might actually be some value going the other way now, because it does still have to do with the number. So now conflicting scenarios in that game that could kind of put you on either side. I don't want to deal with it. I'm not going to do it. And let me, what should I do here? I'll talk about my plays, and then I'll talk about the Monday night game last, because I have a play in Sunday night. I don't have a play in the Monday night game. So let's do it. Let's talk about Shannon's notorious for playing well with backups. Yeah, he's a good coach for sure. So 49ers, I mean, certainly they could show up for that game. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. So that's how I feel about that. Let's go to my plays. I have a play in the middle of the afternoon. I think in the 1 a.m. That's the time that I was about to start this video. Oh man, it's already 2 in the morning. And then I got to play in the Sunday night game. Indianapolis Colts plus 7.5 is my first play on Sunday. I'm already 1-0 this week. I'll just put that out there because I won on Cleveland. That was the strongest play of the week, but now I'm giving you 2 other plays here. And you might be thinking I'm crazy. What am I doing? Why am I taking the Indianapolis Colts and fading the Detroit Lions, who look like they're a runaway train right now? I know, but I'll show you the Lions' schedule in a minute. The Lions are public, 82% of tickets and cash. I expect the cash percentage to wind up being less than the ticket percentage. They're up from 7 to 7.5, although with reduced juice, but I did find a 7.5 out there. And by tomorrow, this Lions team is so public. The 7.5s will probably be out there at the minus 110 price. They're going to the well. I know. I went to the well with the Colts. I played them in that Buffalo game 2 weeks ago, and they could have covered that game, but they didn't. Back then, I mentioned the Colts had a really good spread record, and they still do. They're back on the winning side because they beat the Jets last week, and that was a lean. I talked about that game last week, and I actually leaned against my Colts last week, and they still got it done and beat the Jets. So Colts back with another cover in that game and outright win. So the Colts, I think they remain the best against the spread team in the NFL going into week 12, and they've already had a bye, I believe, so they played 11 games. I think there's something, what are they? They're 8-3 or 9-2 against the spread now. I forget which one it is, but Indy has definitely covered a lot, and they seem to always cover as an underdog as well. They seem to be undervalued quite a bit. You ride my NFL plays. That's giving me a lot of credit, man. Thank you. Excuse me. I mean, I had a bad stretch in those 2 really public weeks. I was on an 0-7 NFL run, which doesn't happen very often, but the last few weeks I've been up in the NFL, I'm pretty sure. I keep going 2-1 in the NFL, so that's not horrible. Look at Detroit's schedule, man. This is why I'm going to fade them here. They're coming off a game, and I know it wasn't a big game, right? Like playing Jacksonville, who cares, right? But they won this game 52-6, And the score was not even misleading, man. They put up 645 yards of offense to Jacksonville's 170, 38-10 first downs, and 39-20 or 39-21 in possession minutes. 645 yards of offense. This looks like a college football game, dude. What NFL team puts up 645 yards of offense? Even Detroit, they usually, eventually, Detroit starts they usually run the ball quite a bit. And Jared Goff usually throws kind of fewer passes, but is very efficient, but not in this game. This is crazy, man. So off this type of offensive performance, this is just like with Miami. If you remember, Miami last year scored 70 points in a game, and they had a big game. That was a blowout over Denver, and then they had a game where they weren't playing an opponent they were going to be focused on. I forget who it was. And then up the next week, I think they had the Buffalo Bills or something. So whatever it was, Miami was in a big sandwich spot, and I faded them in that game off of the game where they had scored 70, and this game really looks a lot like that. This is a game where it's another situation where the team had a blowout win, and one of the best offensive performances that you'll see, and the best of this year in the NFL, and they're going to have a big game up next, which I already said. It's the Thanksgiving game. In 4 days, they have to turn around and host the early afternoon Thanksgiving game because it's always the first one up against division rival Chicago Bears. So I think the Lions could overlook the Colts in this spot, man. When you're coming off an offensive performance like that and you feel like you're invincible, man. And then going to play an out-of-conference road game. And I always say out-of-conference road games are the game that means the least on a team's schedule because the way the tiebreakers work, conference games mean more than out-of-conference games. And especially on the road, you don't tend to really totally focus on that opponent a lot of times. So all of that is in play here as well. And like I said, I think this basically makes it a sandwich spot. And I will point out, this was the 8th most offensive yards ever recorded in an NFL game in history. This is the 8th, and there were only 3 or 4 in the modern era. And of course, the one that was the most was that Miami 70-point game against Denver. They put up 720-something yards of offense, and that was the most ever. But Detroit has put up the most since then, I think, and this is the most of this year and the 8th most ever in history. And I think it's the 3rd or 4th most going back a decade. So that is just a crazy offensive performance to be coming off of, man. Now, like I said, road out-of-conference game against a Colts team that they might overlook, especially because the Colts have Anthony Richardson back in there, and he just hasn't looked very good. And they got their big divisional game on Thanksgiving, hosting Thanksgiving against the Chicago Bears. So this is the one team that is playing on Thanksgiving that I am actually going to fade in the look-ahead spot here. It's going to be the Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts, they're still sitting at 5-6, man. So they're still fighting for a playoff spot. And I know when they were fighting for a playoff spot, they had put Joe Flacco in because they thought he was going to be the guy that could get them to the playoffs this season, more likely than Anthony Richardson would. But then when they lost these 2 games, they decided to, or I think it was when they lost these 2 games against Minnesota and Buffalo, they decided they were going to switch back to Richardson again. So I mentioned that last week. I thought the switch back to Richardson meant they were kind of throwing in the towel and saying, we're just going to try to develop him now. We think our season is over now. But they won the game against the Jets with Richardson, and now they got a game against Detroit in Indianapolis' own stadium here. One of the best teams, probably the most hyped team in the NFL right now because of their offense. Detroit, coming into your place, you're going to be focused on that game if you're Indianapolis, man. I don't think there's any question about that. I think that win was actually good because it breaks that loss streak. Anthony Richardson actually didn't have a bad game against a pretty good Jets defense. He didn't play badly. 20 for 30, 272 yards, a touchdown, and no interceptions. That's not bad. And Indy outgained them in the game. So Anthony Richardson, maybe he's starting to, turn it around a little bit and do something. So I think Indianapolis is going to be focused on that game. So I'm taking the points with the Colts. And then my other game, this is still probably only going to be about an hour video. Hey, why not? Sunday night, LA Rams +3. I think this is a sandwich spot. It's sitting at 3. It's down from 3 to 3 with reduced juice. So I saw it kind of hanging in the middle there between 3 and 2.5. If you have to like lay minus 115 to get the +3, I would still probably say that you can do that because you're going to normally get it at minus 110. If you only have to pay minus 115 to get that key number of 3, I think it's still worth it to do that over playing the 2.5. But anything more than that, minus 120 or above, I'm not sure I'd really want to do it that way. Maybe you could look to take plus 2.5, or if it's sitting at 2.5, as I mentioned, you could actually tie the Rams into a teaser to get their leg up from 2.5 to like 8.5, and then you have to tease them with another game. But I could see you playing it that way as well. Eagles, 61% of tickets, 60% of the cash. So they are public with a little bit less of the cash on them. In these night games, man, when you have a public road favorite like that in these big primetime games, I like to look at the home underdog more often than not. And I know it used to be a much better moneymaker than it is now. The odds makers have had to adjust to that, but it is still a pretty decent moneymaker. And look at the spot that the Eagles are in, man. This is why I'm playing the Rams here. The Eagles, they just beat the Washington Redskins, as I said, on Thursday night. That was a big primetime game. They leapt over Washington in the standings because of that. And now Washington is behind them by a game and a half now? So that was a huge win for Philadelphia, man. I think Philadelphia actually went into that game having already leapt ahead of Washington because Philadelphia had beaten Dallas and Washington had lost to the Steelers, I think. Is that what it was? So Philadelphia, but they gave themselves a little bit of padding now. They're up a game and a half plus the tiebreaker against Washington because they beat them. They have the tiebreaker right now against Washington. So that was a huge win for Philadelphia. Now they have extra time off to think about it. So I think that long week with the extra time off, when you're coming off a monumental win, not monumental win, but a huge divisional win like that, it is a letdown spot, and I don't think the extra rest helps because look at Philly, man. I mean, they not only won that game, but they won 6 games in a row now. When you have extra time off and it's almost like a semi-bye there, that can stop your momentum, man. You don't want to have extra time off there when you're off and running and you're playing really well. You don't want to have extra time off, especially if you're coming out of a big game like this. Well, either way, if they were coming off a big game like this, I would still be fading them. But still, I think that extra rest actually is going to hurt their momentum a bit. You don't want that when you're winning. And I know the Rams are looking like they're decent now with this offense again, but I think it's going to be pretty easy to overlook the Rams. And it's going to be a tough spot as well because look at what this is. I point this out a lot. This is an East Coast team going to play on the West Coast at 8:20 p.m. So that game is going to be going until between 11 and midnight per the Eagles' biological clock time there. And I always say East Coast playing a late primetime game on the West Coast is always the worst spot for your biological clock. It's not the West Coast team going east and playing an early start time game. It's the East Coast team going west and playing a late night game where they're starting to get tired. So that's what this is as well. And I know Miami won in that spot a week or two ago or whatever, but I actually liked Miami in that one. I do not like the Eagles in this one, man. Coming off that huge win over Washington, playing a game. It's a difficult spot, like I said. And who do they have up next? The Baltimore Ravens, who are one of the best offenses in football. And people are probably going to be hailing that as a potential Super Bowl preview and stuff like that. So Philadelphia, I think that is a look ahead. They're playing a Rams team that's sitting at 5-5 now. I think they could overlook the Rams here. And the Rams, yeah, they did have to go to the East Coast, and now they're coming back to the Pacific Coast. But it's going to be easier for them because their biological clocks are at least used to this, even though, yeah, they were out on the East Coast last week and they beat New England. Not a huge win or anything like that, but I think they probably flew back right after they played this game. And I think Philadelphia did not fly out to the Pacific Coast until last night or something, or yesterday until Friday, because I think they wanted to practice in their own facilities. So Philadelphia has not really adjusted, as far as I know, at least looking at the reports, Philadelphia has not adjusted to the time zone really yet because they only went out there yesterday. In my opinion, maybe they should have gone out there early, whereas the Rams, pretty sure that as soon as they beat New England, they were on a flight back to LA so they could practice all week in their own facilities. So I think that's an extra advantage for the Rams as well. And they're not playing anybody big up next in New Orleans. And look where the Rams are sitting right now, man. The NFC West, every team is separated by one game, with Arizona one game ahead of the Rams, Seattle, and San Francisco. So this division is still wide open. So the Rams need this game more, too, because Philadelphia, as I just mentioned, has more padding in their division. So the Rams need a win more than Philadelphia does. And, I wouldn't say it's a must win for the Rams, but there is more motivation on the Rams side. And a lot of times when it is like a game that is a must win, or a team like really kind of wants to win or does need to win, you don't want to like lay a favorite price with them necessarily, because the pressure might be on them if they're like supposed to win. The pressure might get to them a little bit, but when they're an underdog, that's when you want to take them, man, because they're not expected to win. They're considered to be the underdog. They are the underdog. They don't have to win the game outright, really. Although in this game, it's a close spread, so they kind of do. But still, I think when you're taking points in a situation like that, it's a lot better than when you're laying points. So give me the Rams +3 in that one, and those are my 2 plays there. What's up, Nate? You listen to my college show. DraftKings pays less for equal odds than MGM and FanDuel. What do you mean they pay less for equal odds, though? What do you mean exactly? I thought the question was like what, as far as ease of use, DraftKings, in my opinion, is the best. But I still make bets all over the place, man. I'm still on offshore sites a lot here, because you get better numbers on some of those. Like, some of them give you like reduced juice and stuff. So I don't know. Charles, what's up, man? It all ends up in the Israelis' pockets. Yeah. Now, let me talk about the Monday night game, and I'll talk about this one other game that I forgot to hit because it's a big game, Cardinals-Seahawks. Because like I said, that division, I just mentioned that division, it's wide open. This is a really hard game to read. This is maybe one of the hardest games to gauge this entire week, dude. Arizona, they're coming out of a bye, and they went into that bye on 4 straight wins. They were 2-4, and they flipped it around to 6-4. So that bye, I think, does not come at a good time, man. They went on a really high note, crushing the New York Jets. 4 straight wins, so I think that bye is going to halt their momentum a bit, man. The only thing about that is they're still not going to be unfocused against the Seattle Seahawks, because this is a huge divisional game where both these teams are right in the thick of it for the division, although I think it does mean a little bit more to Seattle right now because Seattle is behind Arizona right now. Arizona is atop the rest of the teams in the division, so maybe just a little bit of extra motivation on the Seattle side for that reason. Maybe Arizona having that bye kind of an inopportune time, stopping their momentum, maybe that's a little bit bad for Arizona. I don't think they're going to be overlooking. I don't think they're going to be looking ahead to Minnesota, so I don't think that's a problem. But then the issue on the Seahawks side is they're coming off a big win, road reversal revenge against the San Francisco 49ers. Huge divisional win against the team that won the conference last year, won the NFC last year. So Seahawks could potentially be in a letdown spot there as well, but I think Arizona may be in the somewhat worse spot there, so I may still lean to the Seahawks there. Arizona's flipped, it looks like, from +1 to a pick'em with juice, headed towards Arizona basically being the favorite there with tickets evenly split and 51% of the cash on the Seahawks. I don't think I've ever seen a split like that where it's evenly split for one of the numbers and the other numbers only 1 percentage point off from that. That's just weird. But as it stands right now, I think probably the Seahawks would be the slight lean there. Yeah, you play -110 on DraftKings and on MGM. What do you mean I still don't get that. They return you 1 cent less per bet. I'm only playing in dollar amounts, man. I don't really understand. I don't quite get it. Penny pinching. So, but I've made bets on DraftKings and I didn't really notice that. I just played the 110. I'll have to go look. I don't use DraftKings that often though. Obviously, even though out of the like legal sports books, I basically said for ease of use they were the best. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that. Because I would say I probably make about I don't know what I'm running at right now. Maybe about like 1/10 of my bets. I would say I probably make specifically at DraftKings, but I don't know. Maybe a little bit more than that. Monday night. Let's talk about Monday night. Baltimore at the other LA team, the Chargers, before I get out of here. This is a hard game for me to gauge. Oh, and by the way, I'll talk about the total quickly as well in Philadelphia Rams. I usually talk about the total in the primetime games, even though I could save it for tomorrow's video and Monday's video. But this total's up from 47.5 to 49 with 67% of tickets, 72% of the cash on the over. The line is moving up on the over, and I actually kind of agree with it. For the same reason I kind of liked the over in the Rams-Miami game, even though I know it didn't get there. But the Rams, I still think they're being underpriced a little bit in the totals market and maybe in the point spread market as well, just because they played some of the season without their best offensive weapons there, without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And now that they're both back, that helps the Rams immensely on offense, man. This Rams team, Rams, they're a lot more capable offensively with those guys in there. And the Rams don't really play defense either. So the Eagles should be able to score on the Rams' very weak defense, and the Rams, with all those offensive weapons, I think are being undervalued a little bit, and they should also be able to score points in that game. So that's kind of the way I look at it. So I kind of lean to the over in that one. Chargers and Baltimore here. Baltimore at the Chargers. Baltimore's down from 3 with juice to 2.5 with juice. 57% of tickets, 55% of the cash. So it looks like the cash percentage and the other market indicator, the line, is moving down as well. So the market indicators are both on the side of the Chargers. Total up from 47.5 to 51. Juice to the under. 51, remember, is a key number in football, and so is 47 in football totals. So if you like the over here, you don't want to play it at over any higher number than 51, man. 51 would probably be the cutoff there, and you've still lost line value because, it was at 47.5, so it was never at 47. So you're still always having to play over the hook there, at least for the 47. So this line move actually doesn't matter as much. So the over might still make sense here. 61% of the tickets on the over, but 59% of the cash on the under, though. But that might be after the line moved up a little bit. But I still could see this game going over, man. The Chargers, I know I talked about how slow-paced they are. Yeah, they play a really slow-paced game. So that makes it look like their defense is good. But the problem is, I don't think their defense is bad, for sure. But the way that they play on offense and they maintain possession for so long and they play really slow and eat clock, that keeps their defense off the field, right? So that makes their defense look better than it probably is. And they really have not faced many good offenses. Who are the best offenses the Chargers have faced this year? Arizona. I think they faced Cleveland. I forget when Jameis Winston started playing for Cleveland. Was he in this game? He was. So they did play against Winston. He threw 3 interceptions in that game, though. So, I don't know. His yardage total was decent in that game. But the Chargers, what good offenses have they faced? The best offense they faced was last week against Cincinnati. And I played the Chargers, and the Chargers' defense looked good early on in that game. But Cincinnati came roaring back, man. So the Chargers, thankfully for me, still won the game. But Chargers blew a big lead in that game. And Chargers, their defense finally looked susceptible last week against an offense that can actually play, which is what Cincinnati's can. You know what offense also can play? The Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, I think, have the number 1 offense in football. Across how many bets that compounds, I'm not even sure, man. I don't know what the number of cents there. I don't know how it happens at DraftKings, man. I don't know what that works out to, but very Jewish of them. So Baltimore could potentially score points in this game against the Chargers, man. But then again, it is the Chargers hosting Baltimore on primetime, so the Chargers are also going to be focused. It is a primetime night game for an East Coast team. Like I said, East Coast teams having to go out west and play a late start time like that. It's bad, for their biological clock. So that's not good. Chargers, yes, they're on a short turnaround time because they last played, Sunday night. So they're playing 2 primetime games in a row. They last played Sunday night, against that Cincinnati team, as I mentioned. So they're coming off a big win, and they're on, I guess, maybe a little bit of a shorter week than Baltimore would be because they played the night game there. But still, I don't think that matters that much. So I could see reasons to maybe take the Chargers in this one, but I could also maybe see reasons to play Baltimore. But again, I could see reasons to fade Baltimore as well. Yeah, Baltimore does have a lot of offenders, even though they don't have Ray Rice or Ray Lewis anymore. They're all named Ray, though, as well. Baltimore, I could see this going both ways again, man. They're playing a second straight road game. They're coming off a huge game against Pittsburgh where Baltimore lost the game. But I could see this going both ways, right? This is a big game. And when you have a big game and you lose like that, sometimes it hangs you over into the next game. So you have to figure out, is this going to be a hangover spot for the Ravens here because of that? Or are the Ravens going to bounce back because they were actually a favorite in that game and they didn't play well in this game and they were -3 in turnovers, and they actually outgained Pittsburgh slightly in the game. And I mentioned I kind of liked Baltimore in that one, but Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin, they seem to know how to shut down Lamar Jackson, though. So that's the thing. Jackson doesn't do well against Pittsburgh. That's like been the whole thing. But still, 3 turnovers in the game. That does mean that Baltimore played a little bit better than what the final score looks. The final score is a little bit misleading. So the question is Baltimore going to be hungover coming into this game after playing a huge step-up game against the Steelers where they were basically vying for a top spot in the division there. Baltimore lost the game. So is that going to hang them over because that is a really big loss? Or are they going to be angry and refocus because they played sloppy in that game? I don't know. And then the Chargers... Well, the Chargers are now probably not flying under the radar as much after everybody saw them beat Cincinnati like that on Sunday night. But still, is Baltimore going to not totally show up for this because they're off that Pittsburgh game? I don't know, man. That's the question. And because it's a late start time for them, biological clock-wise, I think I would still lean to taking the points of the Chargers slightly here, but not by a lot. Just because the Ravens, off of a tough loss there that could hang them over, and I know I'm reiterating what I already said, and it's a Pacific Coast game like that, man. I think that probably the Chargers and that would be agreeing with the market read at the very least on the Chargers side. So that's what I feel about that Monday night game, at least right now. I don't know if that's going to change by the time Monday comes around. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. That's going to do it for me. I think that's it, right? I covered almost every game on the slate there, and my plays, once again, already won on Cleveland Browns plus 3.5 this week. And tomorrow I got the Indianapolis Colts plus 7.5 and the LA Rams plus 3. Those are the 2 plays, 2 home anti-public underdogs at the very least there. So that's going to do it for me. I'm Tower Gang Toad. You can follow me on Twitter. Follow the Tower Gang podcast and go to patreon.com/Tower Gang and throw us some support, man. You get live pre-show, post-show, hang out with us in a Telegram. All cool stuff, man. Some good things to come from Tower Gang as well. So do that and go follow flapper.net as well, FLAPPR.net. They're the world's finest smut blog, and they blog about NFL. They always do an NFL recap every week that is hilarious as well. They put out humorous content as well, and they talk about women, and they talk about beautiful women, not just women in general. And they talk about, they're not feminists. They just like hot women and talking about their assets. And they do talk about like politics and history a little bit. And I am running their Milkers of the Year award betting odds as well. So Sydney Sweeney and Nancy Mace look like they're going to have to duke it out at the end of this year. So we will see. That's going to do it, man. Thanks for hanging out, guys. I'll be back with you again, I guess, in the morning after I get very little sleep again. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to another show, Pineapple Thief, tomorrow night, which is a progressive rock band. With I think they have the same drummer, if I'm not mistaken, as Porcupine Tree, who I love, Steven Wilson's band. They're all these British prog rock bands. You don't care. You don't know these bands. But Pineapple Thief, I've never seen them live before. I don't know their catalog very well, but they're playing a theater show tomorrow night, and I'm like, I'm going to go to it. I think it'll be fun to just see them live, and I like that style of music, so I am going to do that. The Pineapple Thief is the name of the band. The Pineapple Black People. Sydney Sweeney, she might still be the favorite, man, even though there is some push for Nancy Mace right now. But Sydney Sweeney, she just announced that she is refusing to quit doing nude scenes. So she is saying that she is going to continue doing that and to fuck you, basically. So I like that about it, too. She's like, I'm doing nude scenes. I'm going to still do nude scenes. Look at my titties. I will, Miss Sweeney. Boobert, she's in the running as well. She's one of the, she has some of the best odds as well, and she won, I think she might have won the whole thing last year, actually. I think Boobert is the returning champ last year for the Beetlejuice friskiness incident there, or whatever you want to call it. I think that's why she won last year, but we will see, man. I don't know if we're actually going to accept bets on it. The betting odds are kind of just because they're hilarious and just for fun, but that's going to do it for me, man. Thanks for hanging out. Peace out, man.